ketones, and are they healthy for the body? How do they impact us physiologically? And so we're going to dive into this topic of ketones, ketogenesis, or the formation of these ketones, and fat burning. So who is this presentation for? It's for anybody that wants to really learn how to burn fat more effectively, how to enhance brain function and energy levels. So let's jump into this. If you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine. I speak all around the country on a number of different health topics, but in particular on brain health, digestion, and energy, how to improve your energy. And I really have a specialty in the ketogenic diet and really teaching people how to utilize that. And you can see my beautiful family, my wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua there. And so as we jump into what a ketogenic diet is, we got to understand why and what kind of benefits can we get from the ketogenic diet. And so number one is ketogenic diet is an anti-inflammatory diet. It's like the true essence of an anti-inflammatory diet because it powerfully reduces inflammation more so than any other sort of nutrition plan. It improves your body's ability to burn fat as fuel. In fact, most people are sugar burners and sugar cravers. But when you get into ketosis, your body is utilizing stored fat for energy through this mechanism by creating these molecules called ketones. See, fat itself, fatty acids, are not water soluble. Ketones, when the body converts fatty acids in the liver to ketones, it takes something that's fat soluble and makes it both fat and water soluble. So ketones are able to cross through the cell membrane and get right into the mitochondria where they're used for energy. And this is a key thing. And if we're going to be able to burn fat well, we've got to be able to produce these ketones and utilize them. It enhances the brain. The brain runs off of these ketones. In fact, roughly 2/3 of the energy production of the brain can be created through these ketones. So they have an enormous impact on your mental clarity, your sharpness, your emotional balance. They really help with energy because they are a clean fuel. They produce a lot of energy, very little metabolic waste. Because they have such a powerful anti-inflammatory effect, that's going to make them really good for your skin. You're going to notice really good anti-aging qualities to your skin because your body's producing less oxidative stress when you're utilizing these ketones. They also help with leptin and insulin sensitivity. And leptin is basically a hormone that helps with satiety. It helps teach our brain when we're sensitive to leptin that we are satisfied, that we're satiated. So we have less cravings, less hunger in general. We also get this amazing benefit of increasing the amount of mitochondria because the body gets really good at producing energy in the mitochondria. See, sugar we can burn outside of the mitochondria for energy, whereas these fatty acids or ketones, they go into the mitochondria. So when the body senses that we're utilizing ketones, it will increase the amount of mitochondria, which dramatically increases the amount of cellular energy production, helping protect the DNA, helping to produce more energy overall, and just allowing us to function at significantly higher level. And of course, all of that results in anti-aging effects and a reduced risk of chronic disease. So when we look at some of the top health experts out there, we've got Dr. David Perlmutter, who's a medical doctor. He wrote the best-selling book Grain Brain and also Brain Maker. And he says ketones are an efficient and effective fuel for human physiology, production of damaging free radicals. So basically, we can use these ketones for energy without producing free radicals, which is not the case with sugar. Ketosis allows a person to experience non-fluctuating energy throughout the day, as well as enhanced brain function and possibly resistance to malignancy. So basically, when we're using sugar, our blood sugar is going up and down. That's what he's talking about there with fluctuations, whereas ketones really provide a stable source. Our body will continue to produce them as long as we keep insulin, the hormone insulin, down. We're going to continue to produce these ketones. And so awesome stuff. And then Nora Gedgaudas, if I said it right, who wrote the Primal Body, Primal Mind, great book. And she says, I've seen mood stabilization, reduced or eliminated depression, reduced or eliminated anxiety, improved cognitive functioning, greatly enhanced and evened out energy levels, cessation of seizures, improved overall neurological stability, cessation of migraines, improved sleep, improvement in autistic symptoms, improvement with PCOS, improved gastrointestinal functioning, healthy weight loss, cancer remissions, and tumor shrinkage. Much better management of underlying previous health issues, improved symptoms and quality of life in those struggling with various forms of autoimmunity, including many with type 1 and type 1.5, or basically so autoimmune-based diabetes, fewer colds and flus, and total reversal of chronic fatigue, improved memory, sharpened cognitive functioning, and significantly stabilized temperament. And there is quality evidence to support the beneficial impact of fat-based ketogenic approach in all these types of issues. So this is really what I've seen as well. It's just phenomenal results across the board of people utilizing a nutrition plan like this and helping produce these ketones. So how does ketosis work? Well, basically most people are eating a high carb diet like breads and grains and starches. And so then when they eat that, their blood sugar rises, so the hormone insulin comes out to take sugar out of the bloodstream and put it into the muscles, the liver, as well as into the fatty acids. So insulin does that, takes sugar out, and then the body produces energy with that. And so when this happens, when we're eating these higher carb diets, we're teaching the body to use glucose or sugar as its primary energy source. However, when we're on a low carb, high good fat diet, then our blood sugar goes down, our insulin levels go down. So what happens? The body starts taking triglycerides, and this enzyme lipase breaks them down and turns that and gets them going to the liver, where the liver converts them into something called ketones. Again, from fat soluble, which is what the triglycerides are, to water soluble, which is what the ketones are. And the ketones are really water and fat soluble, so they're able to cross through the cell membrane, because the cell membrane on the outer layer is fat soluble, but they're able to cross through, and then within the cell it's water soluble, so then they're able to interact within the cell. So really, really cool molecule these ketones are. So one reason why this is so important is because we know sugar causes inflammation. We know that sugar damages the brain. In fact, diets full of processed and sugar-heavy foods can increase the risk of depression by 58%. Sugar damages our heart, our kidneys. We know kidney failure is one of the top conditions associated with diabetes. It damages our skin. If you've got eczema or acne, cutting out the sugar, you'll notice a huge change. It will affect our genitals and our reproductive function. It will damage our joints. So we got to get the sugar out, and that's really what a ketogenic diet does. And so the first 3 steps, these are the 3 big steps we need to take when it comes to really following this sort of a ketogenic healing diet. Number 1, we reduce sugar and things that turn into sugar, in particular grains, but really starches in general. So even potatoes, corn, and then to be in a strict ketogenic diet, we take out even healthier, safe starches like carrots and beets and sweet potatoes and different things like that. So we take those out. We get rid of bad fats as well. So that's going to be things like corn oil, soybean oil, safflower, cottonseed oil. These are really bad fats, hydrogenated oils. We want to add in a lot of good fats, things like avocados, olives, grass-fed butter. Let's see, eggs, pasture-raised eggs are a good source. Olives, nuts and seeds. These are all can be really, really good sources of fat. And then we want to change the meat that we eat. We want to get rid of grain-fed, commercially raised, and we want to utilize a lot of grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised animal products. And so we look at the ketogenic diet, we know that the main calorie source is going to come from fatty acids. They're going to make up somewhere between 60 to 80% of our macromolecules or our calories. Protein is going to be about 20 to 30%. So somebody, an athlete or somebody that exercises regularly, they're going to need a little bit more protein than somebody who's more sedentary. Somebody who's sedentary, we're looking at like 20% of the calories coming from protein, whereas somebody who's doing high intensity resistance training or just working out at a high intensity or an athlete, we're going to look at more like a 30% of their calories coming from protein. And really the same thing with carbs. Somebody that's more sedentary, we're looking at 5% coming from net carbs. So net carbs is fiber. It's total carbs minus fiber. Total carbs minus fiber. So fiber does not count in that because fiber our body doesn't break down. So net carbs should be about 5% for somebody that's more sedentary. Somebody that's doing high intensity resistance training or high intensity athletics can do about 10% of their total calories coming from carbs. So this is how our body is going to get insulin down and allow us to burn these fats or ketones as our primary energy source. And ketones, there's three main ones. Acetone is one of them. And so that is a ketone. Acetoacetic acid is another one. And so these ketones, basically, our body will eliminate them in certain areas. Like acetone is what's associated with keto breath. So we're going to breathe out acetone as we start to produce a lot of these ketones. Whereas when we're testing urinary ketones, we're testing acetoacetic acid, which is what we're mostly urinating. When we test our blood, we're testing beta hydroxybutyric acid, which is technically not a ketone. It's an ester, but it acts like a ketone. And so basically, we want to produce a lot of these three. Okay, and we can test all of them, and I'll explain that here in a minute. And so we look at something like coconut, for example. Coconut is very high in these healthy fats that turn into ketones. In particular, the caprylic and capric acid turn almost immediately into ketones in our body. So we can also concentrate those two fats and make something like MCT oil, which is just a concentrated medium chain fatty acid. So coconut oil is a great source and a great source of fats, and it definitely helps ramp up these ketones and the production of ketones. Okay, so how do we measure ketones? 5 different ways. You can do urine ketone strips. So as you start following this diet, you can test with urine, which is very inexpensive. However, urine doesn't really tell us how well our body's utilizing ketones. It really just tells us that we're producing them. So again, when we're testing urinary, we're testing acetoacetic acid. And so we do that, we're going to test it, and we're going to come up with a number or a reading there. Okay, and in the beginning, when you first start, it should go real high because we should be producing ketones, but not utilizing them well. It takes time to be able to utilize them effectively. So over time, it should go down to more of the moderate because now our body's starting to utilize these ketones. So you can do that. The gold standard way of testing is using the blood ketone meter, like the Precision Extra Blood Ketone Meter, which is a great read, and I'll explain that in a minute. You can also get the Precision Extra and do glucose strips as well. And you're typically looking for your glucose levels certainly to be under 90, really more so around 80 at max or 80 at highest, but you should feel good. So there's a big difference between being hypoglycemic, where your blood sugar is low, okay, and you're utilizing ketones, whereas when your blood sugar is low and you're not utilizing ketones. So when you're not utilizing ketones, we call it hypoglycemia, and you notice that you're irritable and anxious and you just don't feel good. Whereas when you're producing the ketones and your blood sugar is low, you feel really awesome. You feel amazing, unstoppable. So that's one way, is testing your blood glucose levels, and also really how you feel. As you get more into this, you kind of feel this amazing feeling when you're utilizing ketones for energy. You feel like you can go long periods of time without food. You just have abundant energy. You need less sleep. You just feel really, really good when you're in stable ketosis. And then one other way to measure, and this is what I actually like to use, is the Ketonics, is you can actually breathe in this. It's like a one-time fee of about $200 on your computer, and you use this and you can breathe into it, and it will tell you how you're producing ketones. This works great if you don't like to prick your finger like me. I hate drawing blood, and it gives a good accurate measure. And again, this is testing acetoacetic acid. So the Ketonics is another way that you can do it. And if you're interested in more information about these, you can click on the article that goes along with this video, and you will learn more. Okay, so when we're looking at blood ketones, you can see that nutritional ketosis really begins about 0.5 millimolar, okay, 0.5, and goes to roughly around 3 millimolar, okay? Beyond that is what we call starvation ketosis. More or less, you need a calorie-restricted diet, or even just fasting in general to get your ketones up much higher, unless you're using supplemental exogenous ketones. That it would be one other strategy. Now, a lot of times people are concerned about this condition called ketoacidosis. Well, you can see ketoacidosis is on this chart, but really it's basically roughly above 7 millimolar. But in general, it doesn't become dangerous until it gets around 20 to 25 millimolar, which is basically impossible for somebody to get into that is not type 1 diabetic. Basically, as long as your body's producing insulin, any level of insulin, you will not get into ketoacidosis. This is not a risk for anybody unless they're a type 1 diabetic. If you are a type 1 diabetic, or your body has just stopped being able to produce insulin altogether, then it could be a risk. So that's when you definitely want to work with your healthcare practitioner. But for 99.9% of the people that are listening to this, ketoacidosis is really not a risk at all. So you can see ketosis, normal metabolic state. It's very normal. Our ancestors were in and out of ketosis because they had times of feasting and times of famine. Fasting was regular, and it's kind of this range of 1 to 5 millimole in the blood, whereas ketoacidosis, again, just type 1 diabetics are going to get this, and the levels have to be extremely high, 15 to 30 millimoles. It's a very dangerous metabolic state, but again, a condition unless you know you're a type 1 diabetic or that your body has just damaged its pancreas so much to where you're not producing any insulin at all, that would be when it's dangerous. And the reality is, in those cases, no matter what that individual eats that has that, they're going to have problems. They need they need an insulin medication in these cases. So those people will just need that medication. But again, that's very, very rare circumstance. Okay, so like I was talking about, hypoglycemic versus keto adapted, where you're utilizing these ketones. So both conditions will show a fasting blood sugar under 80 milliliter per deciliter. And so they'll both show blood sugar around the same, but the keto adapted individual will have a very low hemoglobin A1C, which is kind of like a 90-day measure of the impact of basically glycolysis or advanced glycolytic enzyme production against the red blood cell. So damage, oxidative stress coming from sugar metabolism against the red blood cell, whereas the hypoglycemic individual actually have it very high. And the reason why is that they're cycling between periods of low and high blood sugar. So they may show fasting blood sugar low because they haven't eaten in a while, but after they eat, their blood sugar goes way, way, way up high. And that's why they're having all this oxidative stress impacting their blood cell. And that's why their hemoglobin A1C is so high. Hypoglycemic individuals are going to have a lot of cravings. They're going to feel irritable and tired. They're not going to be able to concentrate and work. They're going to be talking about that, how they just feel like they're wiped out all the time. They can't concentrate or focus. They're going to end up having hormonal imbalances, fatigue, and just the inability to adapt to stress. And they're going to have a lot of inflammatory types of issues going on. Whereas the fat adapted individual is not going to have the cravings. They're going to feel like they've got a very stable mood, lots of energy, very good mental clarity. So they're just going to feel really good, really stable, and a very healthy stress response where they're able to thrive under stress and low levels of inflammation. So that's a big thing to look out for. And I see as people start on a ketogenic diet, they often struggle with a lot of symptoms of hypoglycemia. So keep this chart out, because if you're noticing these sort of hypoglycemic symptoms, there's things you can do. You can eat more often. You can utilize a lot of minerals, which are extremely important on a ketogenic diet. Staying really well hydrated. There's a number of different conditions, and I'll go through a future video on that to touch on that in more detail. But in the end, why would somebody want to go after producing more ketones and utilizing them as an energy source? Well, because they help you burn fat and help build lean body tissue. That's muscle tissue. And they also help improve your mental focus and your concentration so you can perform at your peak. They help improve your blood sugar and keep it stable. They help reduce inflammation and pain throughout your body, and they reduce your risk of chronic disease. So, this is why I personally follow a ketogenic diet, and this is also why I teach people how to follow a ketogenic diet. And if you want more help and more detailed instruction, I do have an online program called the Navigating the Ketogenic Diet course that you can find on drjockers.com. So check that out for more detail. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this training, and we'll be back with a future. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.